Good day, everyone, and welcome to the Medium's Porch, where we gather together to explore the people, the process, the privilege, and the power of spirit communication. I am your host, spiritual medium Kathleen Bolt, and you can find out more about me on mediumkathleen.com. For those of you tuning in for the first time, I want to make sure that you're aware that this program is part of the Lilydale Radio, a collection of shows put out for the members and others. The members of our spiritualist community we call Lilydale. And this is a small hamlet in Western New York. And you can find out more about Lilydale on lilydaleassembly.org. All right. So today we have a special guest. And our guest is Penny Hayward. And I'm very excited to have Penny here. Hello, Penny.
Hello, Kathleen. Lovely to meet you and be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, of course. Welcome, welcome. Penny is going to be teaching a program this summer in Lilydale. So I'm very excited to get to know her and to talk about the program. And I know she has much to share. Penny has 3 diplomas in mediumship and teaching mediumship. With the philosophy of spiritualism and assessing mediumship. She is a tutor at the Arthur Findlay College, and I know many of us in Lilydale are starting to make our way over there if we haven't already. It's a beautiful, beautiful place. And you are also the course, as of 2022, the course organizer, correct? Yeah, so that's a big job. And then you've been appointed by the SNU as an assessor for all the awards at all the levels and achievement accredited healing medium in 2022. And then to add to that, as of last year, you are now a spiritualist officiant for funerals, namings, and weddings.
Yes.
Welcome, welcome. Busy, busy person.
Yeah. It's gotten real busy lately, but thank you so much again for having me. I'm excited to spend some time with you and share whatever you want to share.
Wonderful. So we'll talk a little more about the course as we go on. I want to start the same place I often start with people to allow you the opportunity to talk about your passion, about mediumship. So where and how does medium call you back again and again? Because the where part, I know you're all over the world, but the call, tell me a little more about how that works for you and what's important.
Well, I think if I'm honest, I think it kind of crept up on me because I was always seeking answers many years ago, very sort of philosophical, even as a child and young adult, wondering about the world and all that kind of thing, the big questions, who am I? And so eventually I got drawn into mediumship, and then it was through mediumship I discovered spiritualism. So it was really spiritualism that was calling me as opposed to being a medium, but my way in was developing mediumship, if that makes sense.
Yes.
And so when I started out going to workshops and all those sorts of wonderful things, I really was just there for me and to figure myself out. Um, and I kind of felt like the odd one out because lots of people were saying, oh, I want to help people and I want to do this and I want to be that. And I'd just be like, I don't know, I'm just here. um, and
Pulling a thread, right? There's something.
yeah. And it took me about 5 years to acknowledge to myself I must be a medium because I'm giving information about people in the spirit world and the other person's accepting it. So must be a medium then. So I've been a reluctant sort of medium, I would say. And then I wasn't really looking to be public or go public. It just felt like soul food to me. And then sort of things started to happen and people would ask would if I would go on the platform or those kinds of things, and I'd be like, no, no way. uh, and long story short, I gave my phone number to someone and said, I'll do some private readings at a fair, but that's all I'm going to do. And then out the blue, I got called by a church saying the medium's cancelled. And I'd never heard of this church or anything. And I was sort of thrown into the deep end to do a Sunday service. And I'd never done one before. I'd seen plenty, but never done it. And so that was the spirit world's way of throwing me in the deep end and getting me in, if you like. And every appointment thereon was word of mouth. So I would say what keeps me going back and back. Initially, it was because I was pushed in the deep end and unwittingly, and I thought I'll never do that again. And then I got asked, well, I heard you did a service and it was good, so I want to book you. And I'm like, mm-mm. And they're like, uh-huh. And so it was a lot of last minute kind of requests. So I didn't really have a lot of choice in a way. I sort of was, it was that way to push me in, if you like. So anyway, I would think afterwards, why am I doing, or beforehand, I'd be thinking, why am I doing this? Because you're so nervous and you're so insecure in yourself and shy, and believe it or not, I was. And and you're thinking, why do I put myself through this? And then you do it, and then you sort of feel some sort of elation or some kind of relief. And people say, oh, that was very meaningful and thank you so much. And you sort of a bit like a rabbit in headlights going, really? Oh, okay, wonderful. And then something makes you feel like, okay, maybe it's okay then. Maybe it's okay then. So then as you move through that, it changes and you start to feel a sense of being of service. And so so you face the fear and do it anyway. And then as I went down that road, opportunities would open and more and more requests would come. And then I started doing private readings and, you know, and then I would study more and I would do more and I would push myself more just for myself to understand spiritualism and myself. And I enjoyed the studies I did. And then I thought I may as well do the award then. And so I think it was just sort of like a carrot that was always dangled in front of me. Well, you've got to here. Now, why don't you get this far? And so I think what draws me back now after all those years, so it's sort of a nearly 20-year journey, I would say that it's a, a, a desire to be a voice for the spirit world into this world. And it's not about me in those moments. It's about the spirit world. It's about the person in front of you if it's a private reading. And the biggest buzz I get out of anything really is teaching and seeing people go, that makes sense, or oh my God, I did it, you know, and seeing them evolve on their journey. So being a teacher, being an inspirer, speaking is my passion. And I think teaching falls into that quite well as well. So it's not just the students seeing them evolve and open up in their abilities, but it's also doing the speaking mediumship and having that wisdom or teaching from the spirit world that touches souls in this world. So it's those two aspects really now that make me want to get out of bed and keep going and keep doing what I do.
Nice. I love that. Thank you for that. That makes me realize as you're talking that the journey for everyone, including yourself, then is that journey of moving from that place of, I don't know, uncertainty, that place where I don't know what's going to happen,
Mhm.
yet through repeated exercises and or showing up,
Mm,
spirit's there for us. Spirit brings this
yeah.
information through and empowers us. Now, you mentioned that you are passionate about speaking. Tell us more about that.
Okay, well, the philosophy of spiritualism, the fact that we live beyond this physical world, that our consciousness, our soul, our spirit are more than alive beyond the physical experience is really gets my juices going. And I've always been that person, you know, when I was younger, that perhaps at a party would sit in the corner and shrink into the chair and wait until somebody was brave enough to talk to me, and I'd be instantly into some deep and meaningful conversation, because I can't do the small talk really.
Yeah, yeah.
And and I think that the passion for the speaking side of it is because it is something that touches many souls in a moment. So yes, the evidential communication in, say, a gallery style, I believe you call it in the States, to a large audience, that's great, that's wonderful, but only a handful of people will get some kind of validation, and communication from a loved one. Whereas the philosophy of spiritualism is what spiritualism was built on. It came before the Fox sisters and the rappings and the two-way communication. And of course, we've only just had our spiritualist celebration, that many people call Hydesville. So and that's the dawn of modern spiritualism, of that communication with another living soul beyond this world. But before that, our movement was built on speaking the message from the spirit world, and it was to large audiences. So if we look at Emma Hardage Britton, if we look at Andrew Jackson Davies, if we look at our former pioneers pre the dawn of modern spiritualism, it was all built on philosophy and the teachings of the spirit world and the teachings that there is life beyond this world. So my passion is in that area because it will speak to the audience as a whole if it's done well. And most importantly, from my perspective, is it is a form of mediumship when it's done right. And we've lost that art. We have lost it. And there's really only a couple of people I can think of that bring the power of the spirit world with them when they speak. And a lot of, disappointingly, I feel, some spiritualist churches will say, oh, keep the address short because people want the communication. And I kind of feel like a bit of a kaboom go inside me, because they don't get it. They don't get that actually, if the philosophy is seen as a form of mediumship and it's cultivated and developed as such, then we'll actually get somewhere. And so that passion is something I like to try to bring into my teachings bit by bit, if you like, and you know, to touch the soul, whether it be 1 or 100. You know, you want that power of the spirit world to be speaking through you. So hope that answers part of what you were asking.
Inspires me just listening to it. I recognize that there aren't a lot of speakers that really empower themselves
Mm.
with spirit prior to going out there, as you said, or those are my words. Um, so, what do you recommend for people? How would we walk a path if we are inspired by what you just said? What would be a way of connecting with spirit and working with spirit so that we can be that kind of speaking philosophy medium wherever
Mm.
it takes us?
Well, I think it's important to follow your spirit team's gentle guidance and to be in tune with your own soul and its calling, because while many of the workshops I went to had were mixed experiences and mixed exercises is the word I'm looking for. you know, it was sort of taste testing. There was a lot of different things that I did early days, but most of the courses are focused on evidence, bringing evidence of the communicator, evidence, evidence, evidence. And there's very little that focuses on other forms of mediumship that would lend itself towards bringing that power of the spirit world for the philosophy. So we also have automatic writing or inspired writing. It's not just the speaking side of things. And I'm coming across more and more students that are like, oh, I'd really like to learn how to do writing. I'd really like to learn how to be inspired by the spirit world for this type of mediumship. And that I think is exciting because then they're following that gentle guidance from their own soul and their own and the spirit world. And I think we also have sort of suffered with most people being taught the evidence, evidence, evidence. So then they go on and teach evidence, 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 and all that all those beautiful other forms of mediumship have sort of been the poor sort of second or last best, you know. So once we start to recognize that mediumship is, there's healing, and all forms of mediumship should be healing. They should bring an empowerment. They should bring an upliftment. They should heal the soul in that is in grief, or shine that light upon others to let them know there is life beyond. And we have the speaking, we have writing, we have other forms we've got, of course, we've got trance mediumship as well. But trance mediumship isn't necessarily conducive to the masses. One, because of the energy and the way in and also your common man on the street isn't just going to walk into a trance demonstration and know what's going on. So trance mediumship is sort of limited to its audience. And I think rightly so. I think it should be. And I appreciate there are people that are doing trance demonstrations online and people come across it, and great, that's their path. It's no problem. But it's not really for the masses. Whereas speaking mediumship in terms of the philosophy has the power to speak to any man or woman at any level and give them that that understanding that there is life beyond this physical world, that their life matters, that you know, they are a part of creation and the universe, and you know, all those beautiful and wonderful things. So I think really we have to spend more time in our own power and in the presence of our own spirit. And then with the added presence of our own spirit team, and then we are guided along the path to seek out what it is we need. So a lot of what I've gained has been by reading and sort of expanding my understanding beyond the workshop and beyond my teachers. So I've gleaned a little bit from here and a little bit from there and a little bit from a lot of different people, and I've built that into my sort of own soul and experience. But I've had to go and do a lot of stuff on my own and then develop this ability for speaking in the power and the power of the spirit world. So it was the spirit world that taught me and helped me with that. And I know that I'm still learning, and I know that I'm still growing with it, because I can feel the spirit world changing that power and making it more powerful, and and adapting to different situations. So I think despite all my accolades to date, I'm never going to stop learning. I'm never going to stop evolving and changing. And I think we all should appreciate that on our journeys as well.
Yeah, there's so much out there for each and every one of us. And I love your example because you mentioned about spiritual support. You mentioned about the spirit world giving us direction. And it's like our gifts emerge as we stay in that power and work with that power.
Yeah.
Uh, right now, you are doing a lot of traveling. You had recently acquired your qualifications in the ordination. Do you see in the moment where things are going, or is that also part of the uncertainty that we need and the trust, the uncertainty with the trust balance
Yeah.
that we are all navigating as we continue on a spiritual path?
Absolutely. So I would say that wholeheartedly, I've never sort of gone, right, that's what I want to do and aimed for it. I got told a lot of things of what I could do, should do, and I sort of blithely, if you like, went along and thought, well, okay, if it's meant to be, it'll be, but if it doesn't happen, it won't. So I might have signed up to a particular course on teaching and got so far, and then maybe it paused for a while and then picked it up again. But I didn't consciously go, that's what I want. So I think that a lot of what's happened for me has 100% been taking steps into the unknown. I don't know where this is going to take me. I don't know if it's going to last, but I'm going to take the step and see what happens. So developing a trust that you're meant to take the step and you're meant to learn something is what it's about, if you ask me. And if it doesn't work out, then there's probably something to be learned from that experience, which is going to help you with the next step that you take into the unknown. And I think if we embrace that sort of blind faith, if you like, the stepping into the unknown, actually we find that our foot falls assuredly and another step can be taken. And it takes you beyond where you think you can go. So I never believed I would be able to do certain things inside myself. And by taking those steps of trust into the unknown, it led me to those places that I didn't believe would be possible. And I think there's a timing to things as well. Sometimes we have obstacles in our pathway, and rather than giving up and going, oh, toys out the pram, and arguing with God and yourself and everybody else about it, maybe you're meant to take a divert on your path, and that divert is going to teach you something and make you stronger. And then it leads you back onto the course you may have been taking, or maybe it leapfrogs over it and onto another course, which is beyond your expectation or self-belief. And I think my path has been very much like that it's woven over and under different aspects and different areas. And then you look back and you sort of go, gosh, wow, I wouldn't have thought that by taking that path it would be leading me here, and for example, bringing trance back into my pathway. I developed trance for years, and then I stopped for years, and now I'm doing it again. So and it's stronger and better, but I can't tell you why or how. Except that I've been developing other aspects of myself. I've been developing other aspects of mediumship. I've been working on those accolades and so on and so forth. And so I just trust that it's going to lead me somewhere, even if I don't know what that is.
Sure.
Yeah.
That makes, I think one of the things on all spiritual paths is recognizing that it's not the outcome that gives us that huge sense of fulfillment and worth and sense of belonging to the universe, and it's the process. I mean, would I be right? Do you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I agree with that, but I also think it's really important that we are constantly checking in on ourselves, constantly working on ourselves, because um, most mediums I've met have been through some kind of trauma in their life, whether it be once or multiple times, and different varied types. And I think that, and a lot tend to start out quite shy or timid or introverted. And so I believe it or not, was very shy, and masked that with various walls, and now the mediumship and working with the spirit world helped me to overcome that, bring down the walls, allow myself to be myself, or a version of myself, if you like, an aspect of who I am, because we are complicated as human beings, and we don't, and souls and spirits. So we have this constant, I believe everybody, whether they're a medium or not, needs to be evolving themselves all the time and checking in on themselves and peeling back layers and working on things and healing, you know, healing the past, healing the present, because that then creates a more enjoyable and bright future. And not just in this world, but in the world beyond. And I think that's really, really important to recognize, because I think that a lot of people think, well, I'll rest when I'm dead, or I'll figure it out when I'm dead, or it won't matter when I'm dead. It does matter, and you will have to figure it out when you're dead, and it doesn't go away. So hey, what if we were to do all that healing now? Then perhaps, not only is the rest of our human life more enjoyable, but our life in the spirit world is going to be even more fantastic, perhaps, because we're not having to do the life review, because we've done it. I mean, how about that?
Yeah, true. We've been doing it all along, per se. Yeah. Yeah. I want to
Absolutely.
mention your quote. I love on your website, you have the
Mhm.
quote: "The soul is the compass that guides the spirit through life. The spirit is the record keeper of the soul's journey. The mind is the magnet that tries to throw the compass off course." And I love that quote you came up with, because it does so much at once and it explains precisely, concisely what those three pieces of terminology are and how they work for us and with us and in tandem or against us in the case of the mind that likes
Yeah.
to throw us off course. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have to really give credit to the spirit world, because except that you can't say, that's a quote from spirit, because that doesn't really
No, no.
work. But yeah, but it came to me from them. And I was really struggling to try and understand, well, is there a difference between the soul and the spirit? And if there is, what is it? And when I was sitting in the power, and I was just in that communion of my own soul, my own spirit, and all of a sudden those words came to me, and they were spoken to me. It wasn't like, oh, I think this is the answer. And I can remember being given visions and feelings along with the words at the time. And and I thought, oh my gosh, I finally get it. But what's beautiful about that quote is it's very simple, just three simple lines, but you have to, or you don't have to, but you can take it much deeper. Each line you can take deeper and deeper and deeper, and it evolves as you evolve. and really the mind is just another word for consciousness. So because really mind is a mixed terminology because it can be mixed with psychology and psychiatry, and it isn't the same as consciousness. And so really, if I was to expand that, it doesn't sound as good, the consciousness. Because really, because really consciousness is more evolved than what we perceive as mind. So there's really the human mind and the consciousness, and it's the human mind that's um focused on the physical world, the material world, the what I see and experience and perceive as a human being. And it tends to be, I was told I was not good enough as a child. I'm not good enough. I'll never be good enough. I'm not good enough. That's what I consider as the human mind, and what that quote is trying to say. That part of the mind can throw you off course, the soul off course. But if we look at our spiritual mind, the consciousness itself, the greater mind, the greater aspect of who we are in terms of thought and consciousness, then it's that aspect that connects with the soul. So consciousness and soul are connected, but the human mind is sort of what we experience, the soul experiences in this incarnation. Does that kind of make sense, what I'm
Yes.
saying?
And you mentioned that it's connected, but the way you just described it, I'm seeing that the mind is separate. Is there a way to bring it all together?
Yeah, I think
Or is it
that
possible?
um yeah, I think that as a human being, we're also a soul, we're also a spirit, and we're also that mind, which is the human and the consciousness. So, if I was to say human mind and spirit mind, or soul mind. So we do bring it all together in this world, but we see it as we conceptualize it differently as individuals. And as a medium, we need to bring those aspects of who we are in energetically, because it's all energy. We have to bring all those aspects of who we are energetically into alignment for that power and the enhancement of that power, and to understand ourselves on all dimensions of who we are, which is physical and non-physical. So I think what tends to happen is our human mind tends to confuse things, and that's the throwing the soul off course stuff. That's the sort of like, but I'm human, and I have feelings, and I'm hurt, and and I love, and all this sort of stuff. But that's only an aspect. That's only a facet of who we are, and the soul's experience in the human condition. So sure, when we evolve as a soul into the spirit world, we have the memory of all of our human experience, but we're not caught up in the human emotion anymore. We're not caught up, we know what happened, but we're not suffering. We still experience a connection of love, but that's more, I feel, an energy, if you like. So the emotions move from a human emotion into an energy. And so if you if you're full of anger and resentment and poor woe is me at the time of your passing, then your energy is that lower vibration. Whereas when you pass, if you're in your heart, you're like, well, I wasn't perfect, but I did my best, and I've healed as much as I can, and I love myself as much as I can. I love others as much as I can. I've done my best, God, then you're going to a different vibration. you're going to a different frequency when you go to the spirit world. So this is why I say I want to do as much healing and life review in this life as I possibly can, because I would hope that my frequency is lighter, higher, more vibrant than that sort of human painful experience. Does that make
It does
sense?
make sense, because in natural law, we are attracting to us that which is a reflection of who we are. So if we're
Mhm.
raising our vibration to the point where we've done all this work and our frequency is vibrating at whatever level we can get it to,
Yeah,
then it makes sense that as we make the transition, we're bringing that frequency with us and attracting that which is most
yeah,
conducive of an experience that we really want to have.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, I could talk about it all
Oh,
night,
and I
but we
appreciate
don't
that.
have that time, do we?
The idea of consciousness that you were talking about there, I think I kind of separate consciousness from the mind. I tend
Mhm.
to, and that's where I was trying to understand how you bring it together. And I think I do understand that now, but I do tend to do that. I tend to think of
Well,
things as something
well,
greater and more inclusive of the intelligence of the
yeah.
other realms. And mind, I tend to qualify it, and like you said, the psychology terminology, right? I tend to qualify it as,
Mm,
oh, mind. Okay, there's mind, but then there's ego. And so it's like a
mm,
layer of the mind. So
mm.
I tend to make that
Yeah.
distinction. I
Look,
love,
we are all of that. That's
yes, of
the
course.
thing. And I think that I think that with the mind, what we've also got to appreciate is the brain is just a computer processor of the human body. That's all it does. It processes the perception of the individual in the human experience, but it also happens to process the non-physical information of the soul's experience. Now, as a medium, I am fortunate enough to be able to be sensitive to my non-physical sensitivities. And, the clair senses are our non-physical sensitivities. So I perceive the spirit world, I perceive information from the spirit world through my non-physical senses. Psychics, everybody's psychic. Everybody has a level of psychic ability, even if it's a drop in the ocean. They've got something. And that is non-physical sensitivity as well. So there's no soul in the world that doesn't have some form of non-physical sensitivity. So whatever label they want to give it is fine. I don't mind. Gut instinct comes to mind. So um, when we're talking about mind and consciousness, consciousness is to me, a vast reservoir of information that can be accessed at various levels, depending on your ability and depending on your willingness to open up your consciousness to another level, another layer. And that's what mediums do. And I'm quite sure that as to access other layers and to move into the consciousness of another mind in the spirit world, you are we are working in some kind of quantum field. That's the way I like to understand it. And there's no physicist that knows what quantum physics is yet. So I don't profess to know what it is yet either, but in my somehow in my sensitivity and understanding it makes sense. We are here in the physical particle, and we are not here because we are also a soul, a spirit, and a consciousness, or the mind. So the mind is not part of the physical body either. So the mind, to me, there's the human condition mind, which is non-physical, and then there's the spirit mind, which is the consciousness, the part of the soul. So in various different theologies, the pineal gland at the third eye is the opening to consciousness. Now, the pineal gland and the opening of the consciousness is also referred to in certain cultures as the seat of the soul. So the soul, to me, the soul itself is that power, that life force, but the seat of the soul is consciousness. So no matter what, once we evolve through the human condition into the spirit world, and we still retain our physical life experience, there's going to come a point of evolution where the physical life, the human form, the outline of the human form drops away because it's no longer relevant or important. But what remains is the soul and the consciousness. And so to my understanding, we're uploading, if you like, to God, and God is consciousness, you know, and we are an aspect of God through our power, but also that seat of the soul, which is consciousness. So I don't know. I can't do small talk, I'm afraid.
I'm so delighted at that you're not. This is awesome. I really have always asked those same questions. You know, the one that you said earlier, like, who am I? I've been doing the same thing since I was a child, and you know, I wrestle sometimes myself with, and maybe some of our listeners do as well, with the terminology, right?
Yeah.
Because
Oh, that's a big one. Yeah.
I really have a theory that part of the reason we get into conflicts and fights is just communication and just an understanding of
It's
words,
terminology.
right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm 100% on board with that. And, you know, if you look back at the old spiritualist books, they used to talk about psychic force. Now, that psychic force is what we talk about as power, or part of what we talk about as the power. But who, you know, I've got a teaching that I do on the power, which is nothing like anybody else I've seen teach. But who, you know, I remember being a student and other students and myself asking, well, what is the power, and never getting an answer. Like it would be some kind of like, well, it's this feeling. Yeah, and you know, quantify it for me, you know. So when I was saying earlier about soul, spirit, consciousness, and the physical, those are four energetic aspects of who we are in this moment in time, in this physical life experience. And those four energetic aspects need to be brought into an alignment through various movement of our awareness, to bring it into alignment, to open it out into a power. And then the spirit world adds their bit. And then that's what makes it a powerful connection. So, you know, but I could talk about that for hours as well. But we need to appreciate the terminologies have changed over the years, and scientists and researchers are now adding their own terminology to things that we already have labels for. So some of the more recent researchers into that are sympathetic to us as mediums and spiritualists are going, oh yeah, there is an aura. Oh yeah, there is this energy, but they're giving it different names. So they're not telling us anything new. They're
No.
just giving it a new label and putting out a book, and they're a PhD, great, but you're not getting to the nitty-gritty of what is it?
I've heard it called the biofield, which I could understand would be
Yeah,
very acceptable to scientists because you're working with a word they know, bio, and
yeah,
field, you know, like
yeah,
magnetic field. And that's actually how I've explained our aura to people that are just looking for the short answer. I've said, you know how the world has an atmosphere? So do we.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But it's
Magnetic,
magnetic.
so do we. Yeah.
Yeah, it's magnetic energy. So, but yeah, I mean, so it's just, I think we have to, into our teachings, bring in the various terminologies. So then you're speaking to the whole room, because you've got sort of scientific minded people coming into mediumship who are wanting to understand stuff, but you've also got, mediums who are wanting to understand stuff on a deeper level. So we kind of need to have a bridge between the scientific terminology and the spiritualist terminology, and also the ancient spiritualist terminology, and kind of bring it all to the table and kind of go, when I say this, it means that and that. It's the same thing, or an aspect of the same thing. And then we're all on the same page.
It seems very connected to so much of how we live our lives. So even as mediums, we'll get information from spirit, but depending which filter we're carrying that day or from our life experience, that's why they would choose us, spirit, to come
Mm.
through and give it to somebody, because that's the language we'd be able to access that delivers the message
Yeah.
fully. I find that the there's always this chase that we're doing to, and I'm not criticizing anything we're saying, it's that chase to understand through our minds, through languaging, through categorizing things. And yet I want to jump off for a second into another way of seeing the same thing as
Mhm.
I see it. I was listening to years ago, and I'll use this as an example to explain myself here. I was listening years ago to CBC radio in Canada, and there was a scientist who I've long forgotten his name, but he came on and he was talking about how if you can't articulate it, you don't know it. Well, I wasn't a medium at the time, but I was in my car and I started arguing with him because I do not believe that. So maybe you aren't the person that's going to sit there and go through the terminology and what it all means. Maybe you are the medium that can just know it or experience it. So I would like to include that now in our conversation, because I think
Mhm.
it's important to recognize that sometimes it's not a spoken recognition, correct?
Yeah, I agree with that, because I'm no scientist, but I want to understand more, and I'm starting to collaborate and listen to and talk with researchers and for want of a better word, scientists in the research of mediumship and related topics, and and I like I said before, I'm not a quantum physicist, and not even quantum physicists can quantify quantum physics, but I know on some level that quantum physics, or the quantum effect, has something to do with how we work as mediums, that we are both here and not here. And part of my understanding, or the way I want to put it, and there's probably going to be people screaming when they listen to it, but it's just a theory, so bear with me.
Yes.
But I like to say, who's observing who? Because in quantum physics, the particle appears through observation, and they've done all those different experiments, double slit experiments, computers doing the observing as opposed to the human, and etc., etc. And so when you think about it, there's been a progression of the soul from the human into the spirit worlds, okay, which then if you've had children, you are looking in on the physical world and checking in on your children and maybe grandchildren, and therefore you are observing them. So you would also be listening to their thoughts, and, oh, Dad, it's your birthday, I miss you. Right? So they're going to be there. They're going to be observing that. They're going to be hearing that. And so we have, as mediums, we have our spirit team, They observe us. They observe our life. They know what we've been through. They are evolving as we evolve. They evolve through our human experience, and they help us with our mediumship, etc. And they know what's going to work for us and what's not going to work for us. They are observing us. And then you can take it to the top. God, whoever God is to you, is observing us. So therefore, we are in this material particle type of experience. So if we are wanting to manifest things for ourselves, so there are random event generators where you can influence through your thought an outcome on a random event generator. And some people are better than others at doing that. So that means our consciousness has an effect on something. So if our consciousness is also connected to the greater consciousness, to the consciousness of our loved ones, to the consciousness of our spirit teams, to God's consciousness, then we are actually more in control of our lives than we are led to believe. And we can create and manifest what we want. But most people's downfall is they focus on materialism. They focus on money. They focus on bigger cars and houses and materialism. And really, that is not what's important here. It's about the evolution of the soul through the human experience. And if you were to manifest for yourself a happier life, that can come in a myriad of forms and may or may not include more or less money. But, if you're focusing on, I have enough money for what I need as well as time for what I want, then it's not about having millions of pounds. What are you going to do with that? It's about having enough to be able to do what you want to do and be fulfilled. So just as an example, I'm rambling on, I'm sure, but anyway, yes, we can have a knowing, but I think it's not enough. And I think that even if we have a knowing and we can't articulate it, we should be striving to understand it, to be able to put some words to it. So I've had a feeling, a knowing quantum physics has to have something to do with it. And I used to listen to YouTube sessions on quantum physics at night, and I'm like, this is how we work as mediums, I'm sure of it. And now it's starting to sort of fall into place where I can put some words to it, as I just have. I'm not saying it's exactly correct, but it's worth thinking about.
Wow, that is fascinating, because I can understand what you're saying about the perspective and that observation, the power of observation. If we can understand the power of the work we do and how it changes based on spirit's presence and the amplification of that power, that is certainly worth exploring.
Yeah.
Beautiful. I love this. I feel like we could talk forever about this,
Oh,
and
I could.
and I would love to. I do want to, unfortunately, honor your time, because I know you're very, very busy.
No
Uh,
problem.
Also, we want to talk a little bit about your program this summer. So I know it's a complete shift in mode where we're.
Ah.
Can you tell us a little bit about how that got started, that collaboration? Because I know you're talking about how you learn through your collaborations. So tell us
Mm.
a little bit about the collaboration, if you would.
Yeah, sure. So I think Richard and I are kind of going, not sure how this has happened, but it's great. And I think that is going back to that 100% trust in the spirit world and taking steps in a direction, and not really sure, not really knowing why you're doing something, but it leads somewhere. So I've met Richard's father at the college, and did a demonstration with him one open week. And I'd sort of crossed paths with Richard here and there, but nothing sort of that stands out, shall we say. And then I don't know that I'm remembering this exactly as it is, but I felt compelled to get in touch with Richard and his dad, and they don't live too far from where I live. And I said, "Oh, can I come visit you?"
Nice.
And I went and hung out with them for the day, and it was great. And I drove home afterwards and thought that was lovely. I've no idea why that I did that, and I hope they don't think I'm as crazy as I feel, but I did it anyway. And it was lovely. And weirdly enough, Richard had sort of brought up Lilydale and asked me, did I know much about it? And I said, "Oh, I've been before, actually, years ago." And I sort of chatted about that experience. And then some months later, Richard and I had sort of kept in touch, a little bit. And then he got in touch and said, "Oh, I've got an opportunity to work in Lilydale, and there was somebody else who was going to come, but they can't come. And would you come on board?" And I was like, "Oh, you try and stop me." So yeah, so the way, if you meet Richard, you'll have to ask him about his side of how that happened, because I wasn't sort of involved in that initial connection, but he'd been approached, and he is a spirit artist and an artist as well in his own right. And so we'd started working together doing demonstrations, and it was going quite well as well. So we sort of seemed to have a really lovely sort of collaborative, bouncy energy when we work. So one is not pulling on the other. We just sort of come together, and the spirit world comes in on that, and it just sort of flows is the best way to describe it. Um, so we put well, it was mostly Richard and I and putting the program together, and I'm a part of that program. And so a lot of it is to do with color and working with the spirit world with energy. So I've been talking about that a little bit today, and obviously it's also working with the spirit world for information and evidence as well. And we can look at working with color and energy and the spirit world on a soul level, on a spirit communication level, on a psychic level. So we can look at different aspects of that. So there's a 4-day program put together where you can do a 1-day workshop, or you can do 2 of them, or 3 of them, or all 4. So there's 4 days, and there's different elements to each day. So don't ask me what's on which day, because I can't remember. But we have been sharing the information out on social media. But there is a flow of healing as well included, because as was said, all forms of mediumship should be a healing, and have a healing energy to it. So there's also a demonstration that we'll be doing on the Friday, which I think is the 2nd of
Yes,
August.
I pulled it up here. Yeah, the second.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get there, you start your work on the 29th, and then you're right through until the 2nd.
Yeah, so we're super excited
Yeah.
and really looking forward to it.
Yeah. I mean, this sounds fabulous, and I love that you or Lilydale has set this up so that you can experience it for 1 day. I love the idea that you're going to be able to explore, and with that artistic side of it as well as the mediumistic side, and then
Yeah,
all the philosophy. You have 1 day designated for philosophy, so that
that's
that
it.
will be in there as well. Energy attunement. I'm just reading what's here.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. So the first day, here we go, the 29th, you are coming in, and it's a spirit art, mediumship
Mm.
art, and color attunement. And then on the 30th, creativity in private clients, personal development, and philosophy. Then
Yeah.
the 31st, the healing arts, trance, mediumship, and energy attunement. And
Hmm.
the first, faces from the spirit world, spirit art, and mediumship. And
Yeah.
then, like you said, on the 2nd, you guys will be doing a demonstration on the platform. So I'm
Yes.
really excited to see that, the whole thing. I'm going to
Oh,
be participating, by the way. So I will see you there.
awesome. Yeah, no, we're excited too, and we do our demonstrations a little bit differently to perhaps other people doing their spirit art and evidence. So Richard does the portrait, he does most of the drawing. Every now and then I might slap on some color or a little something somewhere. It just depends on what the feeling is at the time. So we work in a very collaborative way, but we also do something that we don't believe anybody else has done, but we don't know everybody in the world. And so but what we do is when we do a demonstration at the end, I will speak some philosophy. So it could be 5 minutes. Because, you know, in a demonstration, not everybody gets a portrait of their loved one. And if you've got 50 people or more, you know, I think the hall at Lilydale can hold 900, can't it? So if we were lucky enough to have 900 people, there's no way we could give a message to every single, like a communication to every person. So what we do is Richard will start to draw while I'm speaking. So it's a message for everybody from the spirit world, and an image appears as Richard works. And so then we suggest to people that they might want to take a photograph. The last couple of churches that we've worked, we've donated the philosophy drawing to the church. So it's just it's a lovely little thing that we do, that's a bit different, and it brings together the art, the philosophy, the mediumship, all together in a different way, as well as the communication that's happened earlier. So yeah, so that's sort of a snapshot.
It's fabulous. So good. I'll look forward to that. It's going to be wonderful. Well, I want to thank you so much for coming and joining us today. Is there anything else that you want to share with us before you go about your activities, what you're doing, mentorship, because you also do mentorships?
Yeah, well, I've to be honest, I have put a little bit of a hold on mentorships and readings just at the moment because, as you say, somehow I've sort of become extremely busy and I've got a lot of travel on, which is exciting. So I'm off to Oslo tomorrow, and well, I'll have been by the time somebody hears this, and so there's a few different events that I have around the world, and I'm really particularly looking forward to Lilydale. But I would say at the moment it's really come and see me where you can, or look up some YouTubes, and I hope to open up readings in a few months' time once I catch up with myself, because I've just sort of I feel like I've been behind, and I just wanted a little bit of time to catch up on myself. So you know what it's like. We've got to have that self-care as we work. And yeah, so people can find me on the internet if they want to see what's on offer. So my website is my name, Penny Hayward, .co.uk.
Great. And I'll put the list of your links and a link to this class so people can click on that quickly in the
Amazing.
email. So that would be great. Yeah.
That would be
Are you
awesome.
arriving a few days before to enjoy Lilydale?
Yeah, so we're going to be in Lilydale a few days before, so we can sort of get settled in, and over any like minor jet lag we might have. And we're going to be, I think we're going to be around for a few days or so afterwards. There might be some other demonstrations that we'll be doing. So do check in on our websites and what we're doing. But I've been telling people I know in the States about Lily Dale. So I'm hoping I'm going to see a few familiar faces. And we're also going to be in Miami and Australia and a few other places around the world. So yeah, it's exciting.
Oh, exciting. Wow, this has been a delight speaking with you, Penny. I am so excited you had found some time in your busy schedule to come and sit with us.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's been a real pleasure to meet you.
And I'll look forward to meeting you in person. And those of you listening today, I want to thank you for joining us. And be sure to check Penny's class out, her website. She has a lot more videos if you enjoyed our talk today, where she's been interviewed and telling us inspirational philosophy and information just through common conversation. So welcome everyone to Penny Hayward, and thank you for joining us. Stay well, and I'll look forward to connecting with everyone next time.
Thank you.